this. The yellow, I think.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Hey,
It's been what, since July?
Yeah.
Everybody ready?
That other
for
daughter
Christmas?
is, but I don't think we see you, so.
Y'all have been, yes, I was not.
Good morning.
Good
Want to get started?
Sure.
All right. This meeting of the Go Virginia Region 6 Executive Committee is called to order at 10:02. Jennifer, please call the roll to determine if a quorum is present in the room.
Mr. Portel,
Present.
Ms. McClellan.
Present.
Ms. Hull,
Present.
Mr. Quick,
Here.
Mr. Beal. Billy is absent. We have a quorum present in the room.
Great. Pursuant to code 2.2-3708.2, meetings held through electronic communication means the regional council must approve members participating remotely. Their names, location, reasons for participating remotely must be included in the minutes. So Jennifer, could you please read the names, locations, and reasons for remote participation?
We do not have anybody participating remotely at this time.
Okay, so are there any questions? Do I have a motion to approve council members Oh, we don't have any.
We don't have
We
any.
have to do that.
We have
No,
to
do
do
we?
that,
Now, are there any members of the public not on the agenda who wish to speak? Okay. Right. Let's see. So the minutes draft has been distributed in your board packet. Any corrections or amendments to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay. I have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. None on the phone, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, Jennifer.
So you all have received a copy of the final growth and diversification plan. There were no changes made from the previous copies that you've received, and we discussed thoroughly at our last executive committee meeting. I've just now combined all of the attachments and all of the data into a final document. So we need a motion to approve.
So do I have a motion to approve the 2022-23 growth and diversification plan?
So moved.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Alrighty.
Just a question, does this have to go to the full council next, or is it the,
It goes to the full council.
so in January?
Yes, yeah, we just have to submit it to the state by the 31st.
So
So,
we've got time.
yeah,
Okay. Jennifer, new business.
okay. So a council update, Ann Lewis and John Wells have officially resigned from the council. They both have retired from their jobs and council, and they've each nominated their successors. However, Ann, John, and Kim make up our nominating committee. So with that said, I'm bringing forth their applications for their replacements to you all to review prior to the council meeting, and the full council still have to vote on these applications. Technically, the executive committee cannot officially recommend these applicants to the council per our bylaws. However, you can all say that you've at least reviewed the application, the applicants and the applications. And today we have Felicia Anise with the REC, and I don't think that Derek's on the line, but Felicia, if you would like to talk about yourself and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Felicia Ainsa. I am the Director of Economic Development for Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. So very nice to meet you all. Definitely am familiar with what you do and support the work. Before coming on board, I've been with REC for about 1.5 years now, standing up their economic development outreach. Before that, I was with the County of Henrico for 6 years, leading their business retention, and then also working with the Capital Region Workforce Development Board. So it's been in this space for a long time, just trying to help communities move forward. So very nice to meet you all. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
So we will at our council meeting in January, we'll have to elect a new nominating committee and officially approve Derek and Felicia, as well as Steve Goodall's term has come to an end. And so we'll be reaching out to Steve to make sure that he wants to continue to serve. And if he does not, then we'll have to fill a gap.
So will these folks be able to be approved in January?
Yes.
Or do I have to wait for the nomination?
They do not. And so we're gonna modify our bylaws later in the agenda to talk about all of this. So yeah, that's
Okay.
where we are with the council.
Okay, Jennifer, project policies.
Okay, so project policies, we discussed this in depth at our meeting last month on how to update the council on projects. I've worked on developing a plan for this since projects only check in with me quarterly before a regional council based meeting. And the suggestion that I have is to have any projects that are off track or have not submitted a remittance, a quarterly remittance to me to come to present at that regional council meeting. The following month, the executive committee will track the progress of that subgrantee. And then if a project is requesting a contract extension, they can come and present to the executive committee or regional council and have their updated metrics, milestones, and outcomes ahead of that council meeting. This also parlays into a request that we've received from DHCD to formally respond to projects that are behind on their drawdowns. And then when we expect them to submit a remittance. So this doesn't require an action from you all, it's just an updated plan and to receive any comments or suggestions that you all may have.
How does this differ from the current process?
That they're just submitting quarterly reports to me and I'm giving you a red light, green light stop sign. And unless I pull something out specifically, it doesn't really, they don't formally present to you all. And
To
so,
require them to come.
yeah,
So you're still gonna have your red light, green light though too?
yes.
Right.
And it's
Replace
still,
that,
yeah, and it's still on staff to pull out things that are maybe off track. Or you all to read at that council meeting if you want to see something at the following executive committee meeting.
And one more thing on that, to get inside the head of DHCD and maybe explain a little bit. DHCD marks progress basically by remittances. And if there's been activity, then there should be money spent and things happening and whatever. And so the non-remittance is a red flag in and of itself
Yeah,
for DHCD and
Yes.
thus for Go Virginia.
and especially with like our larger projects, we have projects that are $600,000 and $2.9 million. And we have received remittances for some of our projects. And so it's just, we need to draw down money.
Well, it might not be a problem. We don't know if it is or not.
Right, yeah, and I'm talking to those subgrantees as well, but it helps to have like another layer to motivate.
Maybe permitted to join us virtually, so they don't have to drive. to the
Yes.
meeting location.
Any other suggestions to help motivate projects?
Is there a course laid out in the statute or guidance on if they can't meet? Like if we discover that the project is no longer feasible, viable, is there a process for moving that
So-
forward?
In our contracts, it says that there's 5 days written notice to the council, or the council can give the project 5 days written notice to say that we no longer wish to continue this project. But that's really the only course of action. So our initial course would be to have them come to the council, discuss what's going on, update their milestones and metrics before we would move forward with that kind of course of action. And I'm gonna let Billy Gamble, is that any other comments in that regard, or did I cover it?
Yeah, no, that's the nuclear option. I mean, I think you guys can have informal conversations with them leading up to that. Pick up the phone, being like, hey, where are you guys at? Does it make sense to move forward? Because we've had a lot of projects where the sub-grantee is like, hey, due to circumstances, it just does not make sense to move forward. And those conversations maybe last over like a month. And then they finally realize, hey, all right, let's just go ahead and there's no shame in returning money, especially if it's tied up where you could deploy it in other areas. And so we have a formal resolution in the contract, but I think, just continue having those informal conversations with the subgrantee, because I think at the end of the day, we want to support everybody as much as we can, and we don't want to use that nuclear option unless we have to. And again, we have a precedent for kind of other support orgs kind of and councils having their subgrantees pull it and just kind of repivot to other opportunities.
So it seems to me the question is, what can we do to prevent ourselves from getting in the kind of situation we have been in recently, where the money has already been spent and then we're told that they didn't meet the terms? And having them report in when they're slow or behind is certainly a step forward, but somehow I'm not sure that would have stopped us from being hamstrung as we were. Any thoughts on that?
I think that as at a staff level, we're working to make sure that applicants in their applications are meeting or defining their metrics and their milestones in as feasible metrics and milestones.
Yeah.
And that we're not getting 6 months into a grant and realizing that what something was written out isn't actually capable of being done. And that all parties agree on all of the metrics and milestones. But that's
Somehow
moving forward.
The momentum of these projects was different than the momentum of the spend.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get them to.
I think it was a one-time, I know you're talking about the welding project, and that was basically the goal of the project was to keep it functioning. And so those expenses continued on whether or not training was continuing.
Well, was the goal of the project to keep it functioning, or was the goal of the project to keep them?
That's the only reason we applied. Because otherwise the whole program would have been shut down. And there was no transition period and no soft landing between Westmoreland County holding the bag and that handoff to RCC. And that ERR, then that all happened during COVID, so it was impossible to plan. And so it was basically a bridge training function to keep the lease, to keep the property because it was not owned at that point. All of those things were in flux, and it was ready to be sold to somebody else, and that program would have no longer had a space.
So
And that ERR.
I don't recall, but was that articulated as the reason?
It was at the time. I mean, it was at the time. It's like, well, what are we gonna do? We were heading towards a cliff in 2020 with the end of that program. And we were trying to figure a way to keep that Westmoreland Workforce Training Center afloat and within the Go Virginia metrics of trying to create jobs and everything else. So, so I think, I know you're concerned about that as a pattern, but I don't, unless we're in a lease holding situation, lease paying situation and monthly expenses paying situation as with that, I don't understand how that would be replicated. But we may be.
Well, so I would just say we should just have transparency on stuff like that. This is as it's happening, or as it's being planned, or as it's being funded. That's, okay.
Can I mention one thing? I think you guys, so going forward, Jennifer saying is recommending to kind of have the subgrantees present on a quarterly basis. So I think we also have the subgrantees submit quarterly reports. And one of the questions in there, they're very brief questions. There's like 3 questions in there, but one of them is, have you experienced any barriers this quarter? And there's no shame if you have experienced barriers, but it allows us to kind of say, all right, this is what they're dealing with right now. So how can we help them kind of overcome that? And I think another thing is, the fact that you guys are going to start having them kind of, give you updates. You'll know ahead of time if they're kind of steering off the path or not, and then we can figure out how we can remediate that. But I think that'll be helpful because, yeah, I agree that when the project is slated to end in like 2 months, and then realize that they're not even close to being finished, that can pose a problem sometimes.
And typically our projects are 2 years. We've just had some, like the REFA project that was only a year, then they extended and extended. And the Westmoreland project, only a year. So it's difficult when it's only a year to really figure out where the pain points are. But moving forward, I think that this will help us.
Certainly everybody will be more aware.
Bylaws?
Yep.
So in your packet is the most recent bylaws approved by the full council with red line changes. We updated these bylaws in April 2021. Currently, the executive committee does not have the ability to nominate council members or approve implementation projects. So staff recommends making the change that the executive committee can recommend nominations to the full council if the nominating committee is unable to meet. And that the executive committee can approve projects to the state board if the full council is unable to meet. We've had both of these situations happen this year in terms of not being able to get a full council meeting together, but having a project that needs state board approval. And then also not having a full executive or a full nominating committee, but also just trying to get a nominating committee together in a physical quorum will be difficult moving forward. So the suggestion is that the executive committee could approve both of these things, but then the next time the full council meets, they'll also review and approve it. In terms of projects, we wouldn't go under contract until a full council meeting. And that really wouldn't delay a project more than 6 weeks. DHED will meet the month prior to a full council meeting, and they'll be able to draft a contract and have those conversations with the subgrantee, and then we'll just approve at a council meeting and sign the contract. So I don't really think it'll be a delay that much.
Now, are other people doing this? I mean, is this SOP or not?
Yeah, I've reviewed with other sport orgs, and that's how they have it set up as well, so that their executive committee can do business outside of the full council meetings, but still have the involvement of the full council. And that wouldn't change our project review process or our nominating committee process. It would just be if we can't get full quorum physically assembled, the executive committee could step in.
And what's the process of approving the bylaw change?
It has to be sent out 30 days before a full council meeting, and then the full council has to vote on it as well.
And the next meeting is,
January 24th.
so you are going to try to get out before Christmas?
Yes.
Okay.
And the only other thing I wanted to point out is that we've updated the membership section in the bylaws to match the requirements that the state has set forth. So we will be convening nominating committee meetings to review our current membership and then match that against the state requirements so that we can be in compliance. We have some people doing double duty, and we want to make sure that everyone is in the right place. And we have some council members who maybe were voted onto the council in a different role, but have changed jobs or changed roles. And so we want to make sure that everyone is representing what they're currently doing. So we'll be reaching out to say, hey, can you submit a new membership application and discuss with the nominating committee moving forward. Any questions? Okay.
22 update.
2022 update, man, we are flying through this agenda. So the plan moving forward for regional council meetings is to have the meeting begin at 10 a.m. instead of 12 p.m. and end at 12:30. We'll spend the first 30 minutes having an educational topic and discussing the priorities in our growth and diversification plan. January will be workforce, as we just finished the Northern Neck Workforce Training Study. And then April will be sites, July entrepreneurship, and October a year in a review. So this being that we have multiple priorities under each of these sections now, and we want to make sure that we can discuss them get stakeholders together. You can't get stakeholders together outside of a full committee, a full council meeting. So it'll allow us to have those conversations. And it'll also allow to figure out what's going on in other areas around the region. Thoughts, questions, comments on that?
Where did the idea come from?
Figuring out how to engage more council members in the process, and with only having a quarterly meeting, how are we going to have to, what are we allowed to do in the workforce section of Go Virginia, and making sure that everybody knows what's going on, and how are we progressing to the priorities set out in the plan, and what is already being done that we could help move forward. So
Who's that speaker for the first one?
Jessica Weber from the Workforce Development Board, I think is her name. She presented at the last Workforce Development Board meeting on the priorities that their plan sets out. So I thought it would be a good way to parlay into our plan.
So are the council members going to understand? Because I can see people coming in, listening to something, okay, let's move on. So now it's an extra half hour of our lives we have to spend in the meeting. And if it doesn't actually translate into anything actionable, it just seems like we're adding on 30 minutes. But I think there needs to be some very clear connection between this person's going to talk about, because if it's just a guest speaker for 30 minutes, we're not going to do anything. People will start on later,
Right?
They're not going to miss anything.
So that's the goal, is to have. My computer just died. Can you figure out power? I don't think that that's plugged in.
I don't think that those strips are working.
Over here.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can move that over there.
Great.
If it doesn't reach, it's not a big deal. Put it over there.
I have an outlet right here. No.
It's okay. You might not have over there.
Oh, so you need something to actually plug them in.
There's an outlet right here.
Yeah. Is there anything behind your chair?
Oh,
All those chairs?
Oh, as long as it's
Oh, wait,
just.
there's one right there.
Do you need it plugged in right now?
I'm okay.
These lovely things in the middle of
It's booting up.
I don't know, half an hour, maybe.
We'll keep talking.
I had my phone plugged in, I didn't realize it wasn't.
Yeah, I saw you pull it.
So we're in this recess.
No, I agree. I think that that's the goal is to connect the speaker to the priorities in the plan and figure out ways to move things forward. But it's not like I as staff can't move those priorities forward. Stakeholders and council members have to come together and say, okay, this is something that we all agree to move forward on. So that speaker from the Workforce Development Board, they are doing basically the same priorities as Go Virginia. So is there an opportunity to have a project with them and use our funding to help move both of our sets of priorities forward? Those kinds of conversations, and then leaving that meeting saying, okay, these council members are going to work with stakeholders and staff to help move these priorities forward.
Which is the model for the welding program. So the answer to Jennifer's rhetorical question is yes, because it's Department of Labor funding from them, which can be matched with state funding.
Is there some way to prime the pump for some of these council members? Because at this point now, we haven't seen some of them since July.
Right.
Yeah.
To say,
Well, I was just
hey,
about to ask that question. How many members do we have?
Well, once we vote Derek and Felicia on, it'd be 21.
And what's the attendance been? Been pretty good.
It's been good, minus not being able to get quorum in October.
Yeah.
But
But online, it's been pretty good.
yeah, I mean, overall, it's been pretty good. We had a good turnout
And
in
most
July.
organizations have had better attendance in virtual
Yeah,
than they have otherwise.
but we still need to get, if we're at 21, we'll need at least 11, if not, I got 12 in person to get a physical quorum.
so we're gonna do a working lunch or is lunch at 12:30?
Lunch would be at 12:30.
So I don't know if it's appropriate for this to be the place, but we're sort of talking about how to get attendance, right?
Yes.
So I have suggested that we move some of these meetings to other parts of the district. Now, I think most of you all are up near this, but I would personally like to see some in the Middle Peninsula or down in Gloucester and Vims or somewhere up on the, you know, up the river. Other parts of the district, and what are the requirements for that?
So there's no ability to ease the virtual rules. How far did you drive today to get here?
Today, an hour and a half.
Yeah, because I
Usually-
mean, I'm not going to
usually
Gloucester
two.
for a meeting. I know that sounds mean, but also like.
But I come up
Yeah.
here, and I do 2 hours when I come up here to place and do some of the things, so.
Yeah. So our
I'll
plan
just be
for,
virtually, I
Well, would you
would.
go 2 hours?
No,
Yeah.
no, I'll give it my entire day,
Well,
I'll
guess
spend my
guess what
whole
it does to
workday.
me?
Yeah.
It eats up my whole day.
which is why I think there needs to, or wish there could be some way to have more flexibility on the. virtual
Well, so I think I think we should just, as a matter of comedy, spread it out. And people can make a choice. I mean, for me, to help make a quorum, it's a 6-hour round trip.
I'm certainly not
At
opposed to it,
best.
and I mean, I live in the Frenchville region, but I think I've gone to 2 meetings in Bowling Green, like, it's not like I drive here all the time.
yeah,
So it's not like I don't drive, but I mean, if it's, even Glenn's is,
an hour and a
it's
half.
hard
Where
for,
are you coming from?
from Fredericksburg, from the city of Fredericksburg. If we really want to get people who are in business to participate, telling them they have to give up an entire day of their work week is a lot.
So I'm in business, I'm not retired. In the course of 6 hours, I would typically do 6 Zooms. And everything in between,
Right, if you can Zoom,
but
it
I'm
works.
here.
If you have to.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking for
Well,
recruitment
so
going forward, it's a
I'm-
lot.
I think we need to discuss, but I think we need, as a matter of comedy, to do, and I also think it has to do with visibility. You know, most of the region, you know, actually, most of the whole region doesn't care what goes on here. But it's even worse if you're down in places like Matthews and Gloucester and all of the counties around there.
So our plan for regional council meetings is to have January at FredCat in Fredericksburg, April in Gloucester at Vims, right?
Right?
July at UMW Dahlgren, and then October at Warsaw.
Good.
And so that spreads us
work.
out, and it allows all of those places have Zoom capability to be able to have people call in. And then Anne Marie and I are gonna work on targeting the Fredericksburg people to attend in person
Right.
in the Fredericksburg ones. And, you know, everyone who's
I mean, it
in
doesn't
the-
seem much different than we did before, though.
No,
I mean, Glenn's was a
Right.
far drive too.
Right.
Glenn's Gloucester, I mean, it's got.
Yeah.
It's farther, but.
RDC isn't doing in-person meetings at their office for outside
Yeah,
people
so
right
that's an
now,
option.
so that's not an option. And so we've been looking at spreading it out that way.
I mean, I think that's reasonable. It doesn't sound much different than the schedule we were doing before.
No. And
The
we
schedule we were
can,
doing before was Bowling Green, Glenn's, Warsaw.
Right.
And this doesn't
Gloucester.
seem that much different.
And Gloucester?
Glenn's, no,
Glenn's.
Saluda.
Gloucester.
Saluda. yes, we're adding
And
Vims.
Vims,
Our
yeah.
previous cycle had been, because we were meeting, in 2019, we were meeting 6 times as a full council. In 2020, we moved to quarterly. And then it was virtual, so it didn't matter. But yes, we're moving. I think the executive committee meetings, we can also discuss if we wanted to rotate, but it is also the 5 of you.
But I do think this is an issue that all of the state agencies are facing now, which is it's not a conflict, but the tension between activities centering around population centers and then everybody else.
Sure.
So I certainly see it on the VIPA board. I mean, we were forced essentially to move out of Northern Virginia, where 90% of all the entrepreneurship technology stuff happens, to Richmond. And we're now opening outposts in the western part, eastern part, all around. But
Just thinking a post-COVID world, people think differently about their time. And it was a perfectly fine medium for 18 months, and now it's not. I think my personal level of acceptance of having to drive and give up my entire workday is much lower after I've realized the capability that we've got. I've never done a
Oh, I
Zoom meeting
know.
before 2020.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe this is something that all of us, maybe as a council, actually given the geographic distances in our council, we could take a position and vote and go Virginia to ask the governor to, or the legislature to make it permanent.
I failed to understand why this is an issue with FOIA and everything. Everything's recorded. It's not like we're hiding anything. I really
Oh,
struggle
totally.
with understanding
Yeah.
why it's not allowed.
And it's not something that us
Well,
as a
in fact, it's
council
more
or,
efficient. It increases
We had to
participation.
cancel a meeting and
Yeah.
lose that work
Yeah.
because one person couldn't show up. It
Yeah.
just seems silly in 2021.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to operate like that.
it's not even like a Go Virginia or a DHED agency policy that we could change. It's a Virginia state code law.
Well, I wonder if this is something we could,
It's, yeah,
well, I wonder if this is something we could do a resolution by the council, this
Yeah.
council,
Legislative priority for 2022. Change this.
and then also contact all of our legislators in the district.
Oh, I've already, I think, emailed all of them. I haven't gotten, they're gone now, but.
yes.
I don't think this is something we're just dealing with here. I think this is a state issue.
Everybody is.
I think that you're gonna see legislation in 2022
Yes.
brought regarding the virtual meetings because people did figure out how efficient they were.
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna be an easy fight at the General Assembly because I've heard from legislators on both sides that agree with it and don't agree with it.
Why?
now you have the same issue at the county level too, right?
We've been in person since day one. We never went virtual. We're still a rural conservative area that,
Doesn't believe in
if I
disease.
tried to set my guys up virtually, it would be a mess.
Mhm.
We limited attendance from time to time, but as far as meetings, we stayed in person from day one.
Yeah.
City of Harrisburg.
Well, Matthews.
They're in person.
like
They were for a long time
conservative,
now.
Yeah, no, we adopted a lot of other strategies. Now you can watch all of our meetings live.
Yeah.
As they're taking place on YouTube, and you can join in on Zoom on every meeting. So we've taken some other approaches, but as far as the board goes, they've been in person. I think the legislators that I've talked to that are against it are just more for transparency issues. It's just, we think this is transparent. It's probably more transparent. I think we've got better citizen activity in this type of thing.
Yeah.
But I think I guess it's just a transparency issue.
Well, it's apparently a transparency issue, even though the reality is it's probably more transparent.
It's hard for me to understand the argument.
Yeah.
When everything's recorded.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to it.
Right.
But I think going
So,
forward, it's
okay,
gonna be
so
a
what does
challenge
it
for
take,
us.
what does it
Well-
take for us to do a resolution? To
Uh,
ask,
it doesn't necessarily take a resolution, it would just take a letter. And we can.
but I think a resolution with a
Okay.
letter would probably have more impact.
Okay, I can do that.
Mr. Vice Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes,
I agree with you guys wholeheartedly. I think you're right, you're spot on with, I don't think it's a political divide because, yeah, I think it's, some folks on one side, think that, it's a transparency issue and they need to meet in public. Others on the same side think, it's more transparent. And my personal belief is I think it's more transparent to have electronic participation. I think the rationale for that is that maybe folks that don't have access to broadband, that's the only thing I can think of, but I think a resolution would be very helpful. And maybe Jennifer, maybe we can bring that up on the next board call too, that if there might be a little more teeth if maybe we can get the other regions to maybe make a resolution because, we have a new administration. So, the reason why the virtual meeting expired was because the current governor didn't extend the executive order. So I think there's opportunities. I don't think it's a political thing. It shouldn't be, at least, because at the end of the day, I think we all want to make our lives more efficient, more productive. So I agree with everything you guys are doing.
On that,
well, I wonder if we could get agency heads like you guys to, or like Go Virginia at the state level also to check in with other agencies to ask them to make the same request. I'm gonna do that with BIPO.
Yeah, sure. I can certainly bring that up.
On that subject, I wanted to bring forward at this meeting, we'll have to discuss it more in depth at our January council meeting. The Go Virginia State Board is holding a 2-day board retreat in March, in which priorities and changes to Go Virginia will be discussed. So each of the regions is supposed to bring forth changes that they wish to be made, and we'll put them all in a letter and have that presented by Billy or Rob at that meeting, or whoever can attend truthfully. And so wanted to start with you all in terms of changes that I could bring forth to the regional council in January.
Did we land on dates for that, Jennifer?
We have not landed on dates for the retreat for support orgs.
And where's that
But-
retreat gonna be?
I would assume it's in Richmond, but I haven't gotten a final date yet. We're still working out between all of our board meetings. And then the board meeting in March will be the 15th, I believe. We've discussed tourism in the past. We've discussed reducing the restrictions around how projects are built. Other thoughts and ideas?
Personally, for me, the most important thing is to get more flexibility. Fund.
Yeah, the ability to fund buildings as well as sites.
Okay.
Critical, and frankly, it should be, the whole program should be administered by the Virginia Economic Development Partnership and not by VHCD. It's a really a cross purposes problem to have two agencies administering economic development projects in the Commonwealth. And I think we'd all be singing off the same song sheet a little bit better if it were BDP that was driving this train.
Vice Chair, can I say something? Say a comment?
Sure.
Let's see, we're gonna have a stakeholder work group meeting. It looks like it's slated, this is still tentative, but it's hard to get a good date in February because with general General Assembly session. But right now, we currently have a stakeholder work group meeting. We're gonna try to have on February 1st, which is a Tuesday. And that the idea for that is to have the support organizations attend. It'd be held in Richmond. And then also we could have up to 2 council members. So, but no more than 2 because then it'd be a public meeting. And this would kind of help us kind of tee up some of those policy decisions for the board retreat on March 14th and 15th. So keep that in mind. We'll be communicating more details when we kind of have everything finalized.
So our meeting is the 24th of January, so that's why I wanted to prepare for that. Morgan, any comments?
Not right now.
I defer to the folks who actually applied it.
Awesome. And then final thing, Anne-Marie, can you bring up the calendars that we're gonna, it's a escape from the PowerPoint and it'll be a Word doc. You'll have to switch screens. So we, in order to try to get more in review of our projects at a deeper council level, we have people joining the LOI calls and the project review calls, as well as the work group meetings. And so this is the calendar that everybody would be receiving, and Anne-Marie is going to send out holds on your calendars next week to give people ideas. So I pulled out Kim's, Billy's, and Rob's, since they're each in a different work group. And you can kind of get an idea of how this would work. So for like we have implementation rounds 4 times a year, and then we have enhanced capacity buildings 12 times a year. And you're not gonna be on every round or every call. We tried to space it out and break it out evenly. And you know, the implementation one would be full board group review and the regional council meeting, update that date with April. Enhanced capacity building, you would see like if there was an initial project review, and then the initial call, final application, and the executive committee meeting, that sort of thing. Can you scroll down to the next one?
Oh yeah, what was that date, December 27, 29?
So we would have, if we were having a implementation project this round, then the full, like you as on a work group would have to meet sometime during that time, or not meet, but review the application during that time,
These are if the applications come forward.
if the application comes forward.
And by review, what does that mean?
So you would get the full application, you would fill out the council review sheets, and then send it back to Anne-Marie, to collate, and then send it
Not
to
a
the.
meeting, it would just be this, is you to review this. And
Right.
I'm personally planning to be on a beach in California on those dates.
Well, we don't have any implementation projects right now, so you're good.
Good.
And then the call is if we had an ECB during round 2, then December 22nd from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. we would have a call with the applicant and 2 council members who have been, you know, based on this calendar chosen, to review that application.
Do we have an ACB?
If we do not, we might have a chamber application come in at that time. But this is, you're on sites, so we have to get to like workforce and
Which one am I on?
you're on entrepreneurship.
Right, so it only counts if it was
A site,
not any ECB, it's
No.
only the site one. Oh,
Yes.
so your chances of getting picked up are,
very minimal.
minimal.
Yes.
So
don't
get overwhelmed.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be somewhere then.
Don't worry.
Yes, you, like in particular, our sites group is smaller than any of our other work groups. And so this is very overwhelming, we're aware, but it's been
Right.
requested.
But if you put out a call for somebody on sites, I would be very interested, so it would be one, yeah.
Right, exactly. And this way it's, you know, it's, hey, I'm gonna be on a beach on December 22nd. Can you like find somebody else, and gives me a month notice to try to find somebody else.
Yeah, got it, understood.
Yeah. And so that's, you know, that's for sites. It's very overwhelming. We don't have a very large sites group. Can you scroll to the next one? So Billy is much shorter because he's on workforce development. There's 10 people on workforce development. And so the spacing out of things is a lot different. And then go to Rob's, please. So for Rob, this is just, you know, outside of our regular regional council meeting and executive committee meetings, these one we would be potentially contacting you if we had an application for this
Okay.
round.
And you're gonna send that to us.
We're gonna send it all to you, and then we're gonna put holds on your calendars. So if you you will get a bunch of emails from Anne Marie with holds on your calendars.
Can you,
But it gives you an opportunity to give us some notice as well.
Yeah, sure.
so Emery, when you send these out, if you could send out them in bunches of like full council meetings. Then separately, the executive committee meetings. And then-
There'll be calendar items, you just accept them and they'll populate, it's not
Yeah,
just.
but I
individually
like
numbered.
to, I mean.
We're working on the blocks. It's difficult because they're not like repeating. So it's not, like the regional council meetings are the 4th Monday of every month, or every 3 months. And the executive committee meetings are the 2nd Monday of every month. And so we can send those in blocks, but we can't send.
Yeah, no, that's, okay.
You want
Yeah.
to meet these, you know,
Yeah.
be
that's-
it's
Okay,
fine,
thank you.
I won't panic and call you.
And you can do it through the whole year?
Yes,
Okay, good.
the goal is to send everybody this email tomorrow with the calendar dates. And very clearly to say, please don't panic.
Right, with a giant disclaimer, these are not your actual obligations, it's just, yeah.
Yes. And then of course, Henry will be on the phone all next week when people panic. So, we're hoping that explaining it, we'll explain it in depth at the council meeting, but we don't want to like wait until the end of January to start getting these dates on people's calendars.
My board meetings are already stacking up for next year.
Yeah, it's busy, gonna be a busy 2022. So, yeah. Okay, cool. On to the financial report, please.
Okay. That you?
It is me. Let's get back to that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll send all the dates and the calendars.
Okay, great. Alrighty. Financial report.
Yes, Emery, can you flip back to the PowerPoint, please?
The next thing is adjournment.
Oh, okay, well, I'll just talk about it then. So our financial report, we are in good standing. We are still in FY 21 in terms of drawing down funds. And we have $3.4 million available in project funds for per capita and 839,000 in terms of ERR funds. So we still have plenty of money to spend. We hopefully will have a small chamber project coming in December, and we're looking forward to some sites projects in the spring, the entrepreneurship project with the FRA in the spring, and hopefully some people getting interested in the ERR funds to pull down. But we don't have anything set in stone at the moment, so things are on the horizon, but moving slowly.
So when there's things like this on the horizon moving slowly, do you ever need council members to call, nudge, check up? Is that, because I feel like, and I know I've harped on this for a long time, that we need to give some of these folks something to do. I don't think they sort of organically know what they're supposed to do. So if there's any projects that people could be helpful with.
I think yes, but at a certain point, it's just people need to write the application, and I can only write so much for them. I have been writing their letters of intent for them just to give them an outline and saying very clearly, here's what you need to get together. And sometimes it comes together for that application cycle and sometimes it doesn't. So it's just a matter of timing and getting people in the door and stuff like that.
So somehow that reminds me that I met with our two new board of supervisors, electees.
Yeah.
And they were interested in what we're doing here. And I'm just wondering if there is a way to, and more economic development. So I'm wondering if there's a way for you to brief them or call them or.
Yeah, so that's definitely.
And I would do the same with all the new.
Yeah, so that's definitely an opportunity. Like Emery and I have all the board of supervisors meetings on our calendars. And we have discussed in the past having me and a council member go and sit down with county administrators and board of supervisors members. So we can start getting those emails out and getting people paired and having those conversations.
Well, I guess another thought would be to do a Zoom meeting where you brief and you invite all of the new supervisors around the region and say, and special invitation, so you know what we're doing.
That would be a public meeting, which would be difficult.
It would be a public meeting.
Yes,
If you were the only, if there were no board members.
yes. Because anytime boards of supervisors, more than two get together in a room, that's a public meeting.
Correct.
So it gets difficult. And if it's hosted by Go Virginia, then the full council have a physical quorum.
Well, just do it 2 by 2.
So, but I mean, if we go down to their board meetings or it asks for time on their agendas, or just have a conversation with 2 of them at a time, then you can do that.
You have any new members, Morgan?
No, sir.
We do.
You do.
She doesn't know she does.
Yep.
It's a few.
Yeah. And we'll also have new legislatures at the district level in 2022. So
We got that is.
we got redistricted.
There'll be a lot of people that have new legislators based off of this map that came out of the Supreme Court last year.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, I guess the other way to do this would be to just send a letter to all of the new ones and say, Go Virginia does this, blah, 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 you know, sort of a short paragraph. And I'd be happy to brief you on opportunities for your county. could be more work than you need, but
You seen the proposed map?
of course, if they're not elected, if they're not in office yet, there's no public meeting.
Does it account for delegates when they elect, so it's gonna be hard to get it together before they're
Their map
sworn
has
in.
time.
Yeah, I think it'll be January,
Big
most
city.
people start on January 1st, so,
Dream City.
and with the holidays.
I think it's a great idea, because
Yeah.
people are totally green, looking for
District
anything.
Right, yeah, you got $3 million, what do you wanna do with it? Here's what you can do with it.
Yeah.
And like our plan lays out very clear strategies that you can do in terms of workforce development, entrepreneurship sites, so.
Probably a good map.
Well, I know a lot of them want to know if you can use it for broadband, so
Middle mile.
you could say what you can or can't do in all of these things too.
Our final thing in the information section is just the Gen Edge reports. We co-funded with all the other regions, the Gen Edge manufacturing statewide project. And we have finally had one approved project in our region. So that's exciting. And yeah, we're hoping to keep seeing projects come out. I do not know the name of the company. off the top of my head.
So Gen Edge is the application count, 39.
Yes, across the whole
So
state.
remind me, so what Gen Edge is?
They are the statewide manufacturing organization, and they help connect manufacturers to business incentives and projects throughout the state. And so they are, the first round of the applications were to help specifically with reshoring PPE. And this one is just generalized reshoring into the state of Virginia. Help our pipeline.
So when they do this, how do they advertise? How do they get people?
They advertise on their website through all their networks. They also advertise with all the associations, and then they have a person that's supposed to cover each of the regions of the state as a point of contact, who's supposed to go out and meet with each of the businesses. And so ours covers Richmond and
But it was
Virginia.
only PPEs?
No, it's any business who either did shift and start doing PPE during the first year of pandemic, and then the second year is just any business who could do reshoring. Who could bring
Reshoring of any
product.
activity?
Yep.
Like
The manufactured product, I think.
like chip manufacturers?
Mhm. Yeah.
So it could be any.
And so they're looking to give money to
So
those.
when you say that it's on their website, I didn't even know that existed. So, I mean, you know, I actually don't look at anything proactively. I have, if anybody who wants my attention has to send it to me. Sometimes twice or 3 times, but you know that, but I mean, but the point is, I'm a business guy and I'm just won't actively go to a website. So I'm just wondering if groups like this can't find a way to be more proactively public and aggressive than they are.
Probably. They have a monthly board meeting that I'm happy to send you, and you're more than welcome to tell them that.
Yes, do that. Please. I mean, seriously, I mean, all these organizations exist and nobody knows they exist. And so, you know, except certain people in certain professional capacities that, I mean, like all of you folks who are in economic development, but I have to believe there are other people who are not in economic development who would be great targets.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting if we could get some more Region 6 companies.
Say what?
If we could get some more Region 6 companies involved in this.
Yeah. Bring kayak manufacturing back to the region.
I'm all for it, so. I do not have anything
Okay.
else for you all.
All right, well, is there any new business or anything that anybody would like to raise?
There was Billy a question, if he's still on.
Sure, he's Billy.
Hey, Billy, has Mr. Youngkin shown any specific interest in Go Virginia? Should we expect anything to come out of the administration in 2022?
So from, I haven't been intimately involved with the new administration, but from what I've heard that they've been briefed multiple times. one of the architects of the Go Virginia program, W. Wynn, who serves on our board chair, or excuse me, serves on our board. He used to be the chair, former chair, has met with him several times and kind of briefed him on what Go Virginia is, its priorities. From all indications, the administration should be supportive of Go Virginia.
I attended the Virginia Chamber presentation of Blueprint Virginia, and Barry Duval made it very clear to Governor-elect Youngkin that Go Virginia sponsored the project and the blueprint to making sure that everything was connected with Go Virginia, and they redid their blueprint around the Go Virginia regions. She's gonna get lunch for us. But it's around the Go Virginia regions, and so they're hopeful that doing it that way will continue to see support with Go Virginia.
Great.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Jennifer, when we were talking about different documentation that you needed for one of our projects. Did you say that you were doing a JLARC? Or no, it was just regular audit, right?
Yes, so next year is the 5 years of Go Virginia, and so it's my understanding we'll be having a program audit next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, so Billy, can you speak to that? Is Go Virginia under a JLARC or no? Or is
We can be JLAR'd at any moment.
Yeah, but
I mean,
not
they have not communicated with us that any timeline, but I would imagine we probably will have JLARC looking at us within the next year. APA, Auditor of Public Accounts, we were last audited 2018, I believe. So I believe we're due for an APA audit as well.
So Billy, this is Rob. So for those of us who are not familiar with the acronym, what is JLARC?
Joint Legislative Action Committee. So basically it's kind of it's the oversight. I believe it's under Senate and House in the House, and they basically just look at all the programs. So they recently, Mr. Vice Chair, you might have heard something in the news about JLARC doing a report on BEC, kind of like, hey,
On what?
Virginia Employment Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they look at all the different state programs and I mean, it's taken really seriously because it has repercussions on how they're going to be funded going forward. So there's different programs they look at. So they looked at Virginia Employment Commission. They saw that there were a number of deficiencies. They highlighted those, and then they make recommendations on ways to improve them. They'll look at Go Virginia, they'll do the same thing, and they'll make recommendations like if this is a program that's making an impact or not. So yeah, we always got to be cognizant of JLARC. And then Auditor of Public Accountants, I think they've been really slammed, and we're definitely overdue for an audit. And so when we get reimbursements, the reason why we're kind of sticklers on documentation for like expenses is because we always got to show that audit trail.
And this is a 5-year cycle?
The Auditor of Public Accountants, I'm not sure, no, they don't have a standard 5-year.
What about the JLARC?
JLARC, they do. They just randomly select programs every year.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so they're not doing, that's not like an accounting audit. It's just a programmatic.
Yeah,
evaluation.
programmatic audit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So no, we're not actively
Okay.
under, yeah.
You use that term, right?
Yeah, I think that it was just more of we're showing audit
Gotcha.
when we were
Okay.
explaining.
Because I didn't follow up with it.
No, you're good.
So does anybody on the call have any questions or anything you'd like to observe before we finish up here?
Billy?
Yes, sir. Billy?
Oh, I have to run. I have a meeting right now. So
Yeah.
thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay. Nice to see you. Thank you. So I guess we have,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn? We have motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, favor? Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
It's 11:01.